How's it going, guys? It's Richard, and as promised in my earlier video where I was talking about the obsidian armor, I'm going to just be giving a little bit of a strategy guide for taking out the boss of the Brink of Extinction quest, which I believe he's called TokHaar-Hok, or just, one of those weird Tazar names. And I'll basically be going over what my strategy was, which did indeed get me the kill, but I will admit that I did struggle at points, but all of the times that I died, it was really stupid things, like I wasn't able to run off the plates in time while they were heating off, or I ran out of prayer points, so I took massive amount of damage, or just really stupid things where I really shouldn't have died. So if you really concentrate, then you should be okay. So I'm going to get on straight into it and say that you're going to use two attack styles, and that is to start off wearing your melee gear and then switch to mage gear later on in the fight, and I'll explain that later. Now basically, if you start off wearing melee gear and have your glove slots and your boot slots saved for mage, so you can save inventory spaces for your food, so you don't have to take as many mage item switches, then you can basically start off and you start meleeing the boss, and then to straight off he'll spawn a ranger, and then what you got to do is, while trying to dodge the plates, obviously you got to try and take out that ranger before the boss gets down to 3/4 health, because otherwise he'll spawn another ranger. Now once that ranger's dead, then you can go back onto the boss and you can change it into your mage gear, and then once you're in your mage gear, he'll only ever spawn the champions. It's either the champions or the kets, and these only attack using melee. So by this point, then you only have to pray melee, and then all your damage will be negated by some amount, which is kind of a nice benefit. And then basically you can just continue the boss fight as before, just casting spells against him, abilities, trying to stun him as often as possible. So in terms of what you should do throughout the fight, now you know which gear to take and switch to, then you always want to be praying melee. If you don't pray melee, he can hit you at like 6,000 hits, which is brutal. So I would recommend taking just one prayer renewal flask, or even just random potion will be enough, and then use your prayer potions. I only used about 2 or 3 prayer flasks throughout the entire fight, so that should be sufficient for you. And on top of that, then you want to just fill the rest of your inventory up with rocktails, plus obviously your switches and the spells to cast. In terms of a spell, I would definitely recommend an ice barrage. Obviously they're going to be weaker to water spells, the various enemies, if you are going to kill them, but ice barrage does actually bind the boss, which is really, really important, because if you don't have him bound, then he can go back into the lava and then he can heal himself, and he heals like really quickly. And you actually see little chat messages. It will give you an orange message if you have managed to stun him, so he can't go and heal, and if he can then go and heal again, then it will come up with a red message, as you should be able to see in the game right now. So that's basically the most important note, is if he starts walking off, then try and spam your stun abilities as quickly as possible. Obviously there's some degree of failure where sometimes the stun abilities simply don't work, but obviously that's just the nature of the abilities, and so occasionally he will be able to go back and heal. That did happen in my successful fight, and that was generally the reason I failed in the past, because he was able to just run under. But that's basically how you avoid him healing himself. You don't have to worry about the minions at all, really, if you're using Protect from Melee against them, because then you're not really taking any form of damage. Now, one thing to watch out for, with the way that abilities work, it seems that it has to finish the animation of the ability before it allows you to move your character. So let's say, for example, you're on a safe square at that point, you're on a safe plate, and then you start casting something like, say, Asphyxiate, which is a combo attack, and it takes about 6 seconds to cast. And so you stood on a plate, and then it starts flashing, giving you the warning for you to move, and during that time you're trying to run off, but it won't move you because you're still casting your Asphyxiate, which is, I know it's not really something you can do much about, but it's a massive flaw. So if the plates have been on their current state, like the current plates that are hot, I guess you would say, then you want to watch out, be really careful at these points. If you only use combo abilities, I'd say, as they've only just changed, so you know that for sure you're going to be able to get across in time. And just in general, just watch out for a lot of damage. I would strongly recommend taking a shield. Obviously, if you're using mage, you can probably use a chaotic staff, and you can just deal so much damage then that it should be okay. But personally, I would say that a shield would be far, far more useful, because you can use things like regenerate, resonance, and just various abilities that actually heal you considerably. Also, you might want to use anticipation as often as you can. but then I definitely rejuvenate as often as you can. Anytime your health is below half and it's off cooldown, then it's really good time to use it. And also just basically watch out anytime that the red text comes out, just try and stun him as much as possible. Try and get your ice barrages to cast as quickly as possible. Obviously there's not really anything you can do to increase the speed of it, but try and keep your mage accuracy high. In terms of equipment, I don't think equipment's actually that important. I use Ganodermics and I use a Grapholic wand, so not really like high-end gear or anything. And as is common in all my videos, I'm still using the Falador shield. Now the reason I use the Falador shield is because it's multi-class, I guess you could say, and so you don't ever have to worry about taking an extra shield slot, so that's kind of useful. And I know that it's got really terrible life point bonus, but it's a shield and it counts, and so the main reason you use a shield is for the ability, so I'd say that's pretty important. Now just warning points: when the other enemies come, they'll always come at a quarter of his health. So you get one when he's at full health, you get another one when he's at 3/4 health, another one at half, and then another one at 1/4 health. So you have a total of 4 minions at the worst point. Now if you take them out, then he will just spawn more of them, so it's not really that much point in taking them out. But you know, I'd say that it's not worth killing them at all unless they're in a situation where you can't actually kill the boss. So obviously in that situation, then it's worth trying to take them out. But you know, it's not that important. And also you can, because they're melee bosses, you can easily try and safe spot them behind the boss. And yeah, that's the sort of thing that works. So this is just a small series of tips. I know it's not really a structured guide as I did for like things like Nomad and my Jad guide, but that's because it's really just a small series of points that you need to know to take out the boss. So I hope this information has been useful to you, and that if you do actually succeed the boss using some of the information that I've told you, then I'd really like to know, and what tactics you use to succeed in it. I mean, I know that we won't ever fight him again, but it's just interesting to know what people found successful and whatnot. I mean, I've heard a lot of people saying Darox was quite successful because you can just cause so much damage so quickly, and the general consensus is that range is a terrible idea. So I would really recommend like only ever using melee or mage. Personally, mage more effective because obviously you've got ice barrage, which counts as a stun, which is really useful. So just that's my sort of 2 cents on the boss and how you take it out successfully. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.